September 13, 1943. South Pacific. 22,000 feet above the Solomon Islands. The morning sky is a cold, brilliant blue, sharp enough to sting the eyes, empty enough to make even a seasoned pilot feel exposed. Far below, jungle-covered islands glow emerald under the rising sun, their coastlines ringed with thin curls of white surf. Up here, the air is thin, violent, and unforgiving. Three dark silhouettes slice through the upper atmosphere: F4U Corsairs of Marine Fighting Squadron 214, the Black Sheep. Their bent, gull-shaped wings catch the sunlight, glittering like steel claws. Major Gregory "Pappy" Boynton, flying lead, scans the horizon. His throat is dry behind the oxygen mask. His right hand rests lightly on the Corsair's enormous throttle lever. Nothing about this aircraft is subtle. The cockpit vibrates, alive with the deep, predatory growl of the Pratt & Whitney R2800 engine, a brute force machine that feels more like a barely restrained animal than a piece of military hardware. You can almost feel the engine through him. Through the entire plane. Through the viewer's bones. This thing wants to hunt. But the Japanese pilots, especially the veterans of Rabaul, don't fear the Corsair. Not yet. Word has spread across enemy airfields. The Americans have deployed a new blue-winged machine that looks clumsy, oversized, and almost comically awkward. The landing accidents were a gift to Japanese morale. Every Zero pilot had heard the jokes. They called it the bent-wing bird that breaks itself. They called it slow, heavy, unstable. They laughed. Boynton knows all this. He doesn't particularly care what they call it. He only cares about one thing right now: what's coming over the horizon. His radio crackles. Lead, this is 2. Picking up movement at 2 o'clock. Looks like multiple bogies high. Boynton tilts the Corsair's nose upward and peers through the canopy. Tiny silver flecks shimmer against the sun. At first, they look like glitter. Then ships. Wings. Formations. Zeros. At least a dozen. They're diving in, sunlight glinting off their polished fuselages like flashes of drawn steel. The classic attack: use altitude to gain speed, strike from above, force the American pilots into turning fights where the Zero excels. It had worked countless times. Against Wildcats. Against P-40s. Against almost everything. But they had never tried it against what Boynton is flying today. He exhales once. "All right, boys," he mutters. "Let's show them what this bird can really do." The Zeros shriek downward like white arrows. Their engines howl. Their formation is tight, disciplined, confident. The pilots inside believe they are about to feast on another batch of clumsy American newcomers. Boynton yanks the Corsair into a climbing turn, something no one expects. The plane surges upward with terrifying acceleration, its massive prop biting into the air. The gull wings flex under the strain. For a moment, the enemy pilots hesitate. This is not what the Corsair is supposed to do. A veteran Japanese flight leader, Lieutenant Saburo Takeda, narrows his eyes as he watches the blue aircraft rise toward him. He has flown Zeros for years, danced through anti-aircraft fire, survived Guadalcanal, and fought every American fighter ever thrown at Japan. But he has never seen a machine climb like this. The surprise lasts only half a second, then both formations collide in the sky. Gunfire lights up the air. White smoke trails whip across the open blue. The Corsair shudders from the recoil of its 6.50 caliber machine guns as Boynton fires the first burst. The tracers spit forward like burning needles, slicing between the diving Zeros. One Zero peels off too late. Boynton's rounds rake across its wing root. The aircraft jerks, rolls violently, and begins a spiraling descent, trailing a ribbon of black smoke. The pilot never has a chance to correct. Takeda watches it happen, one of his best wingmen taken down in seconds. He feels something he hasn't felt in months: shock. That American plane, it shouldn't move like that. He dives toward Boynton, expecting him to break away. Instead, the Corsair yaws sharply and swings its nose back with predatory precision. The two aircraft flash past each other, canopy to canopy. Boynton catches a glimpse of the Japanese pilot's white scarf whipping in the slipstream, his calm eyes narrowing. Now the fight is real. The sky erupts into chaos. Corsairs and Zeros twist, roll, dive, and climb in a deadly dance. The sound of engines blends into a single metallic roar. In the middle of this storm, the Corsair comes alive. The aircraft that everyone mocked shows its real nature for the first time: brutal speed, unbelievable climb rate, terrifying power dives, and guns that cut the sky open. Another Zero drops. Then another. For the Japanese pilots, the laughter begins to fade. For Boyington, this is only the beginning. The sky above the Solomons has become a swirling battlefield of smoke, flame, and metal. What began as a confident Japanese interception has turned into a knife fight in a shrinking pocket of air. Every movement, every pull of the stick, every press of a trigger is life or death. Major Boyington levels out just long enough to slam the throttle forward. The Corsair responds instantly, surging ahead with a guttural roar that vibrates through the cockpit. The giant propeller claws at the thin air, leaving a corkscrew wake behind it. Sunlight flashes across the bent wings as the aircraft accelerates into a shallow dive. To anyone watching from the ground, if they could look high enough, the Corsair would appear as a blue lightning bolt tearing across the heavens. A Zero slips into view ahead of him, banking right, trying to extend into a climbing turn. Boyington recognizes the move. A Zero can outturn almost anything in a tight radius. But it cannot outrun a Corsair. He angles the nose a fraction downward. The airspeed needle jumps. Within seconds, he is closing the gap. "Lead, you're on him," his wingman shouts over the radio. But Boyington doesn't need the reminder. He squeezes the trigger. The Corsair's 650s erupt in a thunderous staccato, stitching bright arcs of tracers toward the white aircraft. The Zero jerks, its left wing shreds in a burst of metal fragments. Fire blooms across its fuselage. Gravity grabs it instantly, dragging it into a tumbling fall. Inside the Japanese cockpit, Lieutenant Takeda watches his men dying in blinding bursts. His disciplined formation, pilots trained from boyhood, forged under Rabaul's unforgiving skies, is unraveling. He grits his teeth. This cannot continue. He pulls his Zero into a high-G ascending loop. The engine shrieks. Sweat beads down his temple. He is hunting Boyington now. But Boyington has already sensed the danger. He banks hard to starboard, the Corsair's wings cutting through the air with an audible whump. The plane's immense power allows him to convert the turn into a climbing spiral. The sudden maneuver forces Takeda to adjust, and in that moment, just a moment, the Japanese ace understands that he misjudged the Americans' new fighter. This aircraft is not clumsy. It is not slow. It is not blind or unstable. It is a predator. Far below, the rest of IM-214 plunges fully into the chaotic fight. The radio becomes a storm of voices. "Zero on my tail, braking left. Got one smoking, he's going down. Watch your altitude. Don't chase too low." One Marine, Lieutenant Robert McClurg, finds himself locked in a turning battle with two agile Zeros. He fights the instinct to try and outturn them. Instead, he drops the nose, letting the Corsair fall into a controlled dive. The blue aircraft instantly gains speed, more speed than either Zero can match. McClurg pulls into a vertical climb. The Corsair shoots upward like a rocket. The Zeros try to follow. They cannot. The instant he gains altitude advantage, McClurg rolls the aircraft over and dives straight back toward them, guns blazing. One Zero disintegrates under the barrage. The other breaks away, retreating toward the sun. Marine pilots had been warned repeatedly, never fight a Zero in its strengths. Today, they are learning something new. Fight the Zero where the Corsair is strongest. Now the Japanese pilots are the ones being forced into the defensive. Lieutenant Takeda cuts across the open sky, searching for an opening. His instincts tell him the enemy leader, the one with the red-marked cowling, is the critical threat. If he can eliminate that pilot, the Americans will lose coordination. He angles downward. The Boyington's Corsair flashes below, diving after another Zero. Takeda tightens his grip on the stick. The muscles in his forearm tremble with strain as he forces the Zero into a steep pursuit path. The altimeter spins. The wind screams across the canopy. For a brief moment, he has position. He lines up the shot. But Boyington senses him an instant before the ambush completes. He yanks the Corsair into a violent, rolling snap turn, something no Zero pilot expects from such a heavy aircraft. Takeda overshoots by inches, blasting past Boyington's left wing in a blur of white and sunlight. Boyington sees his chance. He follows. The Corsair drops into the Japanese pilot's wake like a hunting hawk. Every vibration in the airframe shifts as he aligns the gun sight. The smell of hot oil, metal, and cordite fills the cockpit. Takeda tries everything: barrel rolls, scissoring maneuvers, defensive loops, but the blue-winged killer clings to him relentlessly. For the first time in his career, Takeda feels the cold certainty of being outmatched. Boyington's thumb moves to the trigger. He fires. Tracers streak across the gap. Bullets hammer the Zero's tail, shredding fabric and aluminum. The aircraft jerks violently. Smoke erupts from its engine cowling. Flames spill backward along the fuselage. Takeda fights the controls, but the damage is too severe. The Zero begins a slow, agonizing spiral toward the sea. Above him, Boyington watches his enemy fall, his breathing steady, his expression unreadable behind the mask. The tide of the battle has turned. The Corsair, the aircraft once mocked as a failure, is rewriting the rules of the Pacific sky. And every Japanese pilot still alive knows it. October 2, 1943. Bougainville Airstrip, Solomon Islands. The sun barely clears the horizon, casting long shadows across the runway. Pilots shuffle toward their aircraft, pre-flight checklists clutched in gloved hands, eyes squinting against the glare. The Corsairs sit on the tarmac, hulking and oddly elegant at once, their gull wings folding with mechanical grace yet seeming to hint at latent violence. To an untrained eye, the planes appear almost unstable, as if each could collapse under its own weight. Lieutenant Harold Jr. Smith, fresh from flight school in the States, runs his hand over the propeller. He grimaces. The Corsair's landing gear is narrow and unforgiving. A slight misalignment on touchdown can flip the aircraft on its back, earning it the nickname Ensign Killer among rookies. Junior remembers hearing stories from the veterans, how early pilots would often rip engines off the frame during hard landings. Today, he must conquer it. The engine rumbles to life with a deafening growl. Junior eases the throttle forward, feeling the Corsair lurch under him. He fights the torque, feels it push against him in a dance of muscle and precision. His hands tighten on the controls. Every inch counts. Every vibration tells a story. The Corsair is temperamental, but it listens to those who respect it. Nearby, Major Boyington watches with a half-smile. She bites, sure, he says to a group of rookies, but she rewards those who know how to dance. His words are half jest, half warning. A Corsair pilot can survive battles against dozens of Zeros if he respects the machine. Misjudge it by even a fraction, and the ocean claims you before the enemy does. Takeoffs are brutal. The Corsair lunges forward like a beast being unleashed. Narrow landing gear, massive engine torque, and those bent wings demand focus. Many pilots practice for hours, performing repeated circuits, climbing and diving, adjusting flaps and rudder controls with the precision of a surgeon. Mistakes are expensive. Survival is a lesson etched in sweat and adrenaline. The learning curve is steep, but as weeks pass, the pilots begin to unlock its secrets. They discover how the F4U's exceptional speed at high altitude gives them an edge in vertical maneuvers. Its rugged airframe allows steep dives without fear of structural failure. And those 6.50 caliber machine guns, once merely a technical specification, become instruments of death in capable hands. November 15, 1943. Over Rabaul, New Britain. The Black Sheep Squadron, now fully acclimated to the Corsair, conducts a high-altitude sweep. Enemy radar spots a formation of 15 Japanese Zeros approaching. This time, there is no hesitation. Pilots climb in perfect formation, Corsair noses tipping upward with mechanical precision. They've studied every quirk of their aircraft. They know the torque, the lift, the push of the propeller, the exact moment to roll, dive, or flare. This is no longer just a plane, It is an extension of their body. Boynton locks eyes with Junior through the canopy. Stay tight, stay alive. The Corsairs roar forward. Tracers cut the sky. Smoke and fire mingle with the bright Pacific sunlight. The Zeros attempt their classic dive attack, but this time, the Corsairs don't break. They climb, they outmaneuver, they dominate. One by one, the enemy planes tumble into the sea. The Japanese pilots' laughter has been replaced by shock, then fear, as their reputation of superiority evaporates in the face of raw American firepower. On the ground afterward, a veteran Japanese pilot reports into headquarters, "They fly like nothing we've ever seen." The machine responds to them as if it's alive. For the first time, the word mockery disappears from their notes about the Corsair. It is no longer an awkward bird, it is a predator. By mastering the Corsair, the Black Sheep Squadron rewrote the rules of air combat in the Pacific. They learned to embrace the difficulty, to convert every flaw into an advantage, and to use every ounce of power the machine offered. The F4U was no longer just a fighter, it was a statement, a warning that the Americans were about to take control of the skies. And across the islands, in hidden airstrips and coastal hangars, Japanese pilots whispered the same fear. The bent-wing bird had grown teeth. December 5, 1943. 28,000 feet above New Georgia, Solomon Islands. The air is brittle, cold, and faintly metallic at this altitude. Clouds drift lazily below, masking the islands in fleeting shadows, while the sun glances off the aircraft canopy, blinding the unprepared. Boynton leads a formation of 6 Corsairs, the Black Sheep Squadron moving like silent hunters over enemy territory. The radio crackles. Lieutenant Robert, "Slick," Larson speaks up, voice tense but controlled. "Lead, 2 bogies at 9 o'clock, diving fast." Looks like Zeros, Lieutenant Tanaka's flight. His grip on the throttle is white-knuckled but steady. Every man in the squadron knows the drill, yet tension hangs heavier than the sky itself. Experience with the Corsair had taught them that this machine could turn the tide, but only if they executed flawlessly. Pappy signals with a brief, deliberate flick of his hand. The Corsairs peel into a climbing turn, each plane slicing through the air with deadly precision. Below, the sea glints like fractured glass, waiting to swallow the unwary. Above, the Zeros descend with practiced aggression, banking sharply, their sun-reflecting fuselages gleaming. They dive for the kill, confident in their past victories, yet unaware of the Corsairs' newfound mastery. As the first wave closes, Boynton opens fire. The Corsair's 6.50 caliber guns roar to life, tracers streaking like golden arrows. One Zero erupts in flames, tumbling toward the ocean. Larson twists his plane sharply, dodging enemy fire and lining up his own. Another Zero catches a volley and spirals down, smoke trailing like black ribbons in the sunlight. Lieutenant Tanaka, a skilled and cunning veteran, notices the changing dynamics immediately. These Corsairs, once mocked for clumsy wings and heavy frames, are no longer easy targets. They climb faster, dive harder, and respond to maneuvers with startling agility. Each pilot moves as if the aircraft obeys thought itself, not just hands and feet. Tanaka curses under his breath, flinching as another of his wingmen is shredded in a flash of fire and metal. The dogfight becomes a blur of motion. Rolls, dives, loops, and sudden climbs fill the sky with kinetic energy. Smoke trails intertwine with sunbeams, bullets streak across the cloud-strewn expanse. The Corsairs, larger and heavier, dominate vertical engagement, forcing the Zeros into maneuvers that expose them to deadly arcs of fire. Time slows and stretches simultaneously, the roar of engines, the flash of machine gun fire, and the smell of burning fuel mix in a sensory overload that is almost hallucinatory. In one swift engagement, Boynton maneuvers his Corsair behind a Japanese plane attempting a steep dive. With calm, practiced precision, he squeezes the trigger. Tracers cut through the thin air. The Zero jerks violently, engine roaring one final note before it spirals out of control and crashes into the coral below. One by one, the black sheep are leaving a trail of destruction behind them. The psychological effect on the Japanese pilots is instantaneous. Laughter, ridicule, and confidence evaporate into a cocktail of fear and disbelief. "Impossible," mutters one through clenched teeth. "They shouldn't be able to fly like this." Yet here it is, proof that the Corsair, once the butt of every joke, is now a predator above all else. By the end of that sortie, 3 Zeros lie smoldering in the waters around New Georgia. The Corsairs return to their base, engines still growling, propellers slicing the sunlit air with a warning hum. The black sheep touch down safely, faces streaked with sweat, grime, and adrenaline, yet alight with triumph. This was not just victory in the air, it was a statement. The Corsair had arrived. For the Japanese, the day marked a bitter realization. Their mocking nicknames, Bent-Wing Bird, Ensign Killer, were stripped of humor. The Corsair had proven itself in combat, unshackled from its early flaws, and deadly in the hands of men who understood it. It wasn't just a fighter, it was a revolution in the skies of the Pacific. And somewhere over the endless blue horizon, Boyington allowed himself a brief, private smile. His Corsair's gull wings flexed in the late afternoon light. It had been a long road from derision to dominance, but the black sheep had finally shown the world the truth. To laugh at the Corsair was to court disaster. January 18, 1944. 25,000 feet above the Bismarck archipelago. The air is cold and thin, carrying a faint scent of salt and smoke from distant naval engagements. The Black Sheep Squadron has been ordered to conduct a long-range sweep over enemy supply lines. Reports indicate Japanese bombers are moving reinforcements southward. This is no longer a small skirmish. This is a mission to assert dominance, to show the enemy that American air power is here to stay. Boyington leads the flight, his eyes scanning the horizon as his Corsair hums beneath him. Beside him, Lieutenant Junior Smith adjusts his oxygen mask and checks his gauges, every sense attuned to the machine's behavior. Behind them, Larson and the other pilots fall into formation, the gull-winged Corsairs cutting through the sky in a deadly V-shape. The precision is breathtaking. Every turn, climb, and dive premeditated yet flowing naturally. At 12 o'clock, a flicker of movement, a silver flash against the clouds. Japanese fighters, over 20 Zeros, heading directly for them. The enemy pilots are seasoned, confident, and expecting an easy engagement against what they still assume are awkward, unstable Americans. They do not know that the Corsair's lessons in Bougainville and New Georgia have been etched into every pilot's muscle memory. The first attack comes in a classic dive, a formation descending at blistering speed. But the Corsairs anticipate it. Boyington signals a split formation maneuver, and the pilots respond instantaneously. The heavier Corsairs barrel into a climbing turn, engines roaring, propellers biting into the thin air. The Zeros dive past, overshooting in their own momentum. Tracers cut across the sky. One Zero bursts into flame, another spirals helplessly downward. Takeda, now facing the Corsairs again, feels a cold knot of disbelief tighten in his stomach. Every engagement confirms what he feared. These pilots have unlocked the Corsair's full potential. Its speed at altitude is devastating. Its durability allows aggressive maneuvers previously thought impossible. The gull wings, once mocked, flex and absorb G-forces that would have crippled other aircraft. Junior Smith closes in on a lone Zero that has separated from the main formation. He fires a short, controlled burst. The enemy plane shudders, smoke trailing from its engine. He rolls away smoothly, throttle open, climbing back to join the group. Every action is calculated, almost instinctive, evidence that mastery over the Corsair is as much psychological as mechanical. By the time the engagement ends, 10 Zeros have been destroyed or forced to retreat. The Black Sheep return to base with minimal damage, an extraordinary feat considering the numbers they faced. On the ground, mechanics stare in awe as the pilots disembark. Each plane bears the scars of combat, scraped paint, pockmarked fuselages, and burnt shell casings, yet each stands ready for the next sortie. The psychological effect of these victories cannot be overstated. Across the islands, Japanese intelligence reports the same unnerving message. The Americans have tamed their new fighter. Mockery is gone. The Corsair kills with precision, speed, and audacity. The bent-wing bird had become the predator of the Pacific skies. Inside the squadron, camaraderie and confidence surge. Boynton, weary but exhilarated, addresses his men briefly. "Every one of you flew that fight perfectly," he says, voice carrying the weight of respect. "Remember this. This is what happens when we respect our planes, respect the air, and respect the fight. The Corsair doesn't fail us. We fail it only if we hesitate." That night, as the sun sets over the dark expanse of the Pacific, pilots sit in the faint glow of the airstrip lights. Engines idle, radio silence, and the distant lapping of waves create an eerie calm. The Corsairs, silhouetted against the red horizon, look almost alive, wings arched, engines whispering promises of power and vengeance. They are no longer merely machines. They are symbols, and in the hands of men like Boynton and Smith, they are unstoppable. The laughter of Japanese pilots had long since died. In its place, respect, fear, and a grudging acknowledgement that the skies would no longer be theirs unchallenged. The Corsair had arrived, fully armed, fully tamed, and fully lethal. February 7, 1944. 24,000 feet above the Caroline Islands. The Black Sheep Squadron is on a routine patrol when the radio bursts to life with reports of a large enemy convoy moving below, escorted by over a dozen Zeros. Every pilot is alert. Every Corsair is a coiled predator ready to strike. The air carries a faint scent of fuel and salt, and the sun glints off the polished metal of the gull wings, making them look almost mythical against the endless blue sky. Boynton signals a descent toward the approaching fleet. "Keep formation tight. Eyes open. This is what we trained for," he says. There's a quiet confidence among the squadron, a confidence that only comes from repeated victories, from understanding their machines so deeply that every movement feels instinctive. As they approach, the Japanese escort formation dives toward them, assuming once again that they face clumsy aircraft. This assumption will prove fatal. The Corsairs respond with uncanny coordination. They climb, turn, and dive with precision, using the full breadth of their power to control the engagement. Lieutenant Larson takes the lead in flanking as Zero attempting to break through the formation. The Corsairs' guns roar, tracers streaking through the sky. Another enemy aircraft goes down, smoke trailing behind it like a dark ribbon. The Black Sheep move as a single entity, each pilot anticipating the other's actions, each Corsair exploiting every advantage. The engagement lasts barely 10 minutes, yet it leaves an indelible mark. 8 Zeros are destroyed, enemy ships forced to scatter, and the Black Sheep return to their airstrip almost unscathed. Ground crews watch in awe as the pilots taxi in, engines rumbling with the weight of another day's triumph. The significance is not lost on the men. The Corsair, once difficult to land and prone to accidents, has become an aircraft that defines the rhythm of aerial combat in the Pacific. Its speed, climb rate, and firepower allow it to dictate the terms of engagement, turning the tide in numerous battles. In briefings that follow, Boynton emphasizes a key lesson: respect your plane, know it intimately, and it will make you unstoppable. The Corsair is not just a fighter, it's a statement. Every sortie you fly, you prove that to the enemy. By mid-1944, other squadrons begin to adopt the Corsair, and its legend grows. Japanese pilots, once mocking and dismissive, now speak of it in hushed tones, acknowledging a new adversary in the skies. Intelligence reports note a chilling trend. Wherever the Corsairs fly, Japanese losses increase, and their attacks grow cautious, hesitant. The aircraft's influence extends beyond combat effectiveness. It reshapes tactics, instills confidence in pilots, and changes the strategic calculations of the enemy. Battles once dominated by skillful maneuvering of lighter aircraft now hinge on the ability to contend with the Corsair's unparalleled combination of speed, durability, and firepower. For the Americans, the Corsair is more than a machine. It is a symbol of adaptability and mastery. Pilots who once struggled to land the plane now maneuver it with lethal precision, turning a technical challenge into a tactical advantage. Its wings, once a target of ridicule, now cut through the air like blades. Its engine, once feared for its torque, now propels its pilots to decisive victories. And for every Japanese pilot who once laughed at the Corsair, the memory of that laughter fades into the smoke of destroyed aircraft, the roar of its engine, and the relentless precision of a weapon that refuses to be underestimated. The Black Sheep Squadron, and the F4U Corsair itself, had begun to write a new chapter in the air war over the Pacific. A chapter defined not by clumsy beginnings, but by dominance, respect, and fear. The bent-wing bird was no longer a joke. It was a predator, and the Pacific skies had learned to fear its shadow. June 6, 1944. 26,000 feet above the Marianas Islands. The sun glints off the water, turning the Pacific into a field of molten silver. Corsairs hum in formation, engines throbbing like the heartbeat of the squadron. Intelligence reports indicate a Japanese air response to American landings on Saipan. This is no small skirmish. It is a test of dominance over a critical strategic region. Boynton peers over the nose of his aircraft. Eyes sharp. The Zeros will be coming, and they'll think they know what to expect, he mutters. But experience has taught him that expectation is a liability. The Corsair thrives on breaking it. Suddenly, flashes in the distance, the signature dive of Japanese Zeros. The squadron responds instantly, rolling into coordinated maneuvers. The Corsair's climb rate, once mocked as exaggerated, now gives them the altitude advantage, forcing the enemy to react on their terms. Junior Smith engages a Zero attempting to flank from the rear. The Corsair shudders as he fires, tracers slicing across the sky. The enemy aircraft bursts into flame, spiraling down toward the ocean. Larson, ahead of him, executes a high-speed roll to intercept another attacker, guns roaring in deadly cadence. The Black Sheep move as one, a seamless machine of destruction. For the Japanese pilots, the encounter is disorienting. Every attack they launch is countered with speed, precision, and sheer audacity. The Corsair's guns cut arcs of death across the sky, and its resilience allows aggressive dives that previously would have risked structural failure in other aircraft. Pilots who had once laughed at its wings now find themselves facing an enemy capable of turning the tide of entire engagements. By the end of the battle, over a dozen Zeros are destroyed, and the Japanese air response falters. The Corsairs return to the carrier deck, engines still growling, the pilots exhilarated and exhausted. On the ground, mechanics and fellow airmen admire the aircraft's battle scars, knowing each dent and pockmark tells the story of courage and mastery. Boynton debriefs his men. Every sortie is a lesson, he says. Respect your Corsair, respect your wingmen, and respect the enemy, but never fear the bird you fly. She'll carry you farther than you imagine, if you give her the skill and courage she deserves. The Corsair had achieved more than air superiority. It had become a psychological weapon. Its mere presence altered Japanese tactics, forcing them to be more cautious, more defensive, and more fearful. Wherever the F4U roamed, confidence surged among American pilots and anxiety gripped their foes. Across the Pacific, the legend spread. The bent-wing bird was no longer a derision, it was a warning. Naval officers, intelligence analysts, and ground troops began to recognize the Corsair as a cornerstone of American strategy. It had turned ridicule into respect, adversity into advantage, and potential into lethal reality. By the summer of 1944, the Corsair was fully established as one of the most dominant fighters in the Pacific. Pilots who had struggled to land it now performed death-defying maneuvers in combat, their aircraft an extension of themselves. Enemy forces who had once laughed were now learning, often at fatal cost, that underestimating the Corsair was a mistake they could not afford. The Black Sheep Squadron story, intertwined with the F4U, became a symbol of transformation and mastery. The Pacific had witnessed the birth of a legend, a fighter that had been mocked, challenged, and almost rejected, only to rise and dominate, its wings cutting a lethal path through the skies. And through it all, Boynton and his men understood a truth that every pilot would carry forward. The Corsair was not just an aircraft. It was a promise of power, a testament to skill, and a relentless force that demanded respect and instilled fear in anyone who dared challenge it. October 12, 1944. 27,500 feet above Leyte Gulf, Philippines. The sky is a canvas of violent blues and whites, streaked with smoke from naval bombardments below. Corsairs hum in formation, their engines vibrating with latent power. For the pilots, this is more than a mission. It is a test of endurance, skill, and courage. Intelligence reports indicate a Japanese strike force approaching to counter American landings. Boyington leads his squadron into position. "Remember," he says through the radio, voice calm, "she's fast, she's deadly, but she's also a partner. Trust her, trust each other, and don't give them a chance." His words echo the ethos that had elevated the Corsair from mockery to a myth in just over a year. As the Japanese formation comes into view, the pilots immediately recognize the difference in this fight. The enemy is aggressive, organized, and skilled. But even seasoned Zeros cannot match the combination of raw power, precision, and tactical innovation embodied by the Corsairs. Junior Smith pulls up sharply, maneuvering behind a Zero attempting a high-speed dive on the formation. The Corsair responds perfectly, its gull wings flexing, the engine roaring with controlled fury. He fires, and the Zero erupts in flames, spinning helplessly toward the ocean below. Larson follows closely behind, intercepting another enemy fighter, while Boyington swoops through the center of the engagement, picking off targets with the lethal accuracy that had become his trademark. From the Japanese perspective, the encounter is bewildering. These planes, once ridiculed, move with a precision and aggression that defies expectation. Where they had expected clumsiness, they find dominance. Where they had expected vulnerability, they face resilience. The Corsair had rewritten the rules of aerial combat, forcing opponents to adapt or perish. After the engagement, the Corsairs regroup and head back to their carriers. The air is filled with the hum of engines and the occasional pop of gunfire from stragglers. Below, smoke rises from the wreckage of Japanese aircraft, marking the territory the Corsairs had claimed. On the ground, pilots step from their cockpits, faces smeared with sweat and grime, yet alight with the exhilaration of victory. Mechanics inspect the planes, noting minor battle damage, but each aircraft stands ready for the next sortie. The Corsair, once notorious for its temperamental landing behavior, now serves as a testament to training, skill, and trust between pilot and machine. It is no longer simply an aircraft. It is a partner in survival and a weapon of unparalleled efficiency. Stories of Corsair victories spread quickly. Across Pacific bases, pilots share accounts of enemy formations shredded by their gull-winged machines. The Japanese, once dismissive, now write in reports about the unstoppable American predator in the sky. The laughter that greeted the F4U's arrival has been replaced by fear, respect, and careful strategizing to counter it. By the end of 1944, the Corsair is no longer just a fighter, it is a symbol of American air power. Its journey from derision to dominance illustrates the synergy of technology, training, and courage. Pilots who once feared its quirks now perform acrobatics that defy imagination, while enemies who once mocked it now flee in caution. The F4U Corsair had earned its place in history, not through ease of flight or initial design, but through the relentless perseverance of the men who flew it, the mastery they imposed upon it, and the fear it inspired in anyone who underestimated it. From the jungles and islands of the Solomon Islands to the stormy skies over the Philippines, the bent-wing bird had become more than a machine. It had become legend. March 3, 1945. 30,000 feet above Okinawa. The sky is a pale, almost blinding blue, stretching endlessly in every direction. Corsairs roar in formation, engines resonating like a chorus of mechanical beasts. From this altitude, the sprawling island below seems peaceful, almost serene, but the pilots know better. Every sortie carries the potential for sudden engagement, for moments that test courage, precision, and instinct. Boyington's squadron receives intelligence of a Japanese fighter sweep approaching from the northwest. Over 20 Zeros are heading to intercept American bombers below. The Corsairs, stationed at altitude, have the advantage, but only if every pilot acts decisively. "Stay tight," Boyington commands through the radio. She responds to skill and courage. "Show them what we've learned." The Corsairs bank sharply, engines straining but obedient. Their gull wings cut through the air like knives, each movement an extension of the pilot's will. The first enemy aircraft dives. Instinct and training take over. Junior Smith rolls his Corsair to meet the attacker head-on. The 6.50 caliber guns erupt in a controlled storm of tracers. The Zero bursts into flame, spinning toward the Pacific below. Larsen follows another, weaving through evasive maneuvers, his Corsair responding instantly, a lethal blend of power and precision. The Japanese pilots, once confident, are thrown into disarray. The Corsairs climb faster, dive harder, and execute turns with a fluidity that defies expectation. Where the Zeros had relied on agility, they now face raw speed, superior firepower, and pilots who have mastered the machine. Fear spreads among the enemy ranks, punctuated by the sight of trailing smoke and falling aircraft. Over the course of the engagement, over a dozen enemy planes are destroyed or forced to retreat. The Corsairs emerge virtually unscathed, a testament to both the aircraft's durability and the skill of those flying it. For the Black Sheep Squadron, it is another demonstration of what has been proven time and again. Mastery of the Corsair equals control of the skies. On return to base, pilots share quiet nods and brief smiles. The Corsair sits on the tarmac, its wings gleaming in the late afternoon sun, battle scars barely visible but earned. Mechanics examine the aircraft with reverence. Each dent and mark tells the story of combat, courage, and survival. The Corsair is no longer just a plane. It is a symbol of victory. Japanese reports continue to evolve, moving from disbelief to a grudging acknowledgement of the Corsair's dominance. Their pilots who once mocked it now write of an aircraft that combines speed, power, and maneuverability in ways they had never imagined. Everywhere the Corsair flies, it imposes both tactical and psychological control, shaping the decisions of friend and foe alike. For the men flying it, the lessons learned over months of rigorous sorties have forged a bond between pilot and machine. The challenges that once intimidated, landing accidents, engine torque, and heavy handling, are now mastered. Every climb, dive, and roll is executed with confidence. The Corsair responds instantly to every input, becoming less machine and more extension of intent. By mid-1945, the F4U Corsair has left its mark on history. From early derision and mockery to the apex of air superiority, it has proven that mastery of skill, determination, and courage can transform even the most unconventional tools into instruments of unmatched power. The Pacific skies, once laughing at its awkward shape, now tremble at the sound of its engines. The bent-wing bird had not only survived, it had dominated. July 15, 1945. 25,000 feet above Iwo Jima. The sun is a harsh glare on the horizon, reflecting off the wing surfaces of a dozen Corsairs as they patrol the island. Smoke rises faintly from the recent bombardments below. The island, a strategic linchpin, is crawling with Japanese soldiers, anti-aircraft guns, and the constant threat of enemy fighters. Every mission here is a test of skill, timing, and courage. Boyington, now more seasoned and commanding than ever, scans the horizon with a practiced eye. Stay vigilant. Every sortie counts. Every maneuver matters, he reminds his squadron. There's no bravado here, only calm authority honed through years of battle. Suddenly, radar and lookout reports indicate multiple enemy aircraft approaching from the west. More Zeros, faster and more desperate than ever. The Corsairs respond instantly, banking and climbing into a defensive position. Engines roar like living beasts, propellers slicing the air with precision. Each pilot knows exactly how far the machine can be pushed, and the Corsair responds without hesitation. Junior Smith dives on a lone attacker attempting to slip past the formation. His guns erupt in a spray of tracers, shredding the Zero's fuselage. Larsen flips and rolls to intercept another, his aircraft moving in perfect synchronicity with his instincts. Boyington swings through the center of the engagement, picking off enemy planes with the same cold efficiency that had made him legendary. The battle is over in minutes, but its impact is undeniable. Over a dozen Japanese aircraft are destroyed or driven back, and the Black Sheep return unscathed. The pilots, sweat-soaked and exhilarated, taxi their Corsairs back to the carrier deck. Ground crews marvel at the resilience of the aircraft, noting minor damage but nothing catastrophic. The Corsair had accomplished something rare in the chaos of war. It had bridged the gap between man and machine. The pilot's understanding of the F4U allowed them to anticipate every threat, exploit every weakness in the enemy's tactics, and emerge victorious repeatedly. Its gull wings, powerful engine, and heavy armament were no longer liabilities, they were tools for dominance. Japanese intelligence, now fully aware of the Corsair's capabilities, reports with fear and respect. The machine once laughed at is now described as nearly invincible in capable hands, capable of dictating the terms of battle in a way no other Allied fighter could. For American forces, the F4U had done more than win air battles. It had elevated morale, instilled confidence in pilots, and become a living symbol of technological and tactical superiority. It had shown that even an aircraft with early challenges could, in the right hands, become an unstoppable force. The bent-wing bird had flown from mockery to legend. It had turned skeptics into believers and foes into cautious adversaries. The Corsair's story was not just about engineering, training, or combat. It was about the triumph of perseverance, adaptability, and mastery. As the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and crimson, the Corsairs sit on the tarmac, engines idling but alive, ready for the next mission. Their shadows stretch long over the island, a reminder that the Pacific skies now belong to those who have learned to master the predator that was once laughed at. The legacy of the F4U Corsair was secure. August 12, 1945. 28,000 feet above Tokyo Bay. The Pacific air is humid yet thin at this altitude. The sun reflects off the water, turning the waves into molten silver, while the distant outlines of ships and harbors stretch beneath a fragile haze of clouds. Corsairs roar in formation above, engines vibrating in perfect unison, the gull wings cutting the sky with unmistakable authority. Boyington leads the squadron in what may be one of the final major operations of the Pacific War. Intelligence indicates an approaching Japanese formation attempting to defend key shipping lanes. It is a test of endurance, skill, and the full capability of the F4U. "Remember what she can do," Boyington says calmly. "She's no longer the clumsy fighter they once mocked. Respect her, and she will carry you to victory." His words echo the lessons learned over 2 years of combat, lessons etched into muscle memory, intuition, and trust between pilot and aircraft. The first enemy aircraft appears, diving in a classic attack pattern. But the Corsairs respond with precision and deadly timing. Junior Smith maneuvers behind the attacker, guns roaring. Tracers streak through the sky, and the Zero explodes in flames, spinning helplessly toward the bay below. Larson flips his plane to intercept another, the Corsair responding instantly, almost anticipating his every move. The Japanese pilots, now fully aware of the Corsair's lethality, fight with desperation rather than confidence. Each maneuver they attempt is countered by superior speed, climb, and firepower. Over the course of the engagement, nearly 20 enemy aircraft are destroyed or forced to retreat. Not a single Corsair is lost. For the Americans, this is more than a victory. It is a validation of everything the Corsair represents. It is the triumph of innovation, adaptation, and courage over derision, doubt, and adversity. Where once the aircraft was ridiculed for its design, it now commands fear, respect, and awe. Across the Pacific, the F4's legacy is sealed. Japanese pilots who had once laughed at its wings now report it as the ultimate adversary, a predator in the skies capable of dictating the terms of battle. Its gull wings, once called awkward, are celebrated for the agility and resilience they provide. Its massive engine, once feared for torque and handling quirks, is now recognized as the key to unmatched speed and climb performance. Its guns, once statistics on paper, are instruments of precision and lethality. The Corsair had transformed not only aerial combat but the psychology of war itself. It demonstrated that even the most unassuming or malign technology, in the right hands and under rigorous training, can become a force that shapes the outcome of battles, campaigns, and history itself. As the squadron returns to base, engines idling, pilots reflect on what they have accomplished. The aircraft sits on the tarmac, battle-worn but majestic, a symbol of mastery, courage, and dominance. From its first awkward takeoff to its final triumphs in the skies above the Pacific, the Corsair's journey is complete. The F4U had arrived, no longer the subject of ridicule, but a legend that would endure long after the war. The Pacific skies would never forget it. September 1, 1945. Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. The tarmac is quiet now, a stark contrast to the chaos of the past 2 years. Corsairs sit in neat rows, gull wings gleaming in the late afternoon sun. Mechanics move among them, performing routine checks, their hands moving with practiced ease. Pilots, once tense and adrenaline-soaked from combat, now walk with reflective calm, their eyes tracing the lines of the aircraft that carried them through some of the fiercest battles of the Pacific. Boyington steps out of his cockpit, helmet in hand, his gaze sweeping over the aircraft. He recalls the early days, the difficulty of landing, the torque that threw inexperienced pilots off course, the ridicule from both enemy and sometimes fellow Americans. But all of that was in the past. Today, the Corsair stands as a testament to perseverance, training, and the bond between pilot and machine. Junior Smith joins him, sharing a quiet nod. "She's a beautiful bird, isn't she?" he says. The respect in his voice mirrors that of every pilot who had flown it, every mechanic who had maintained it, and every observer who had witnessed its dominance. Across the Pacific, the legacy of the Corsair is cemented in stories and reports. Japanese pilots write of the unstoppable predator in the sky, noting how its speed, firepower, and pilot synergy had forced them into cautious and often fatal engagements. Allied squadrons share tales of victories, camaraderie, and the confidence that the Corsair inspired in every pilot who mastered its quirks. Its impact extends beyond wartime victories. The Corsair becomes a symbol of American innovation and adaptability, proving that even a machine with early flaws can be transformed into one of the most effective fighters in history. The lessons learned in mastering it, resilience, respect for technology, and courage under pressure, resonate long after the guns fall silent. In hangars across the Pacific, young pilots study the aircraft, learning its curves, its engines, and its capabilities. Manuals are written, tactics are taught, and a new generation carries forward the knowledge that the Corsair demands skill, focus, and courage, but rewards them in kind. Boyington looks up at the gull wings one last time. The sun casts a glow across the polished metal, reflecting the journey from ridicule to triumph. Each dent, each scratch tells a story of dogfights won, comrades lost, and the relentless pursuit of mastery. It is a machine that earned its legend, and the men who flew it helped etch its name into history. The Corsair, once laughed at by enemies and doubted by its own, had become immortal. Its roar would echo not just in the skies of the Pacific, but in the annals of aviation history. It had proven that perseverance, skill, and courage can transform even the most unlikely beginnings into legendary endings. From mockery to myth, from struggle to dominance, the F4U Corsair story is a reminder that greatness often begins where doubt resides, and that those who master their tools, no matter how flawed at first, can change the course of history. The Pacific would remember. The world would remember. The Corsair's legend endures. October 15, 1945. Naval Air Station, Norfolk, Virginia. Rows of Corsairs sit under the soft glow of hangar lights. Pilots walk among them, sharing stories of battles past, their hands tracing familiar lines on fuselages that had once carried them through life-or-death engagements. Mechanics polish engines and inspect wings with a mixture of reverence and pride. The F4U is no longer just a tool of war. It is a classroom, a legacy, and a testament to human ingenuity. Veteran pilots like Boyington, Junior Smith, and Larson participate in training programs, passing down the lessons learned in combat. They teach new pilots how to respect the aircraft, how to anticipate its quirks, and how to turn potential weaknesses into advantages. Every maneuver, every dive, every high-speed climb is more than technique. It is history in motion. The Corsair also finds new roles. It serves in post-war squadrons, participates in demonstrations, and even becomes a star in aviation shows, wowing crowds with its gull wings and powerful engine. Children watch in awe as it roars overhead, unaware that this same plane once dominated the skies over the Solomon Islands, New Georgia, Leyte, and Okinawa. Yet for the veterans, each flight is a memory of survival, courage, and mastery. Internationally, the legend of the F4U grows. Aviation historians document its feats. The Japanese pilots who once mocked it acknowledge, decades later, the transformative impact of the Corsair on aerial combat. Its reputation as a formidable and feared aircraft is cemented not just in American memory, but in the broader history of air warfare. More than a machine, the F4U embodies the principles that define successful innovation: adaptability, perseverance, and the marriage of human skill with technological capability. It reminds engineers that even a design considered awkward or flawed at first can, through relentless refinement and expert use, become legendary. Boyington, now reflecting quietly in a sunlit hangar, looks at a Corsair and smiles. "It wasn't just the plane," he says softly. "It was every pilot who refused to give up, every mechanic who kept her flying, every moment we trusted her in combat. That's what made her more than just an aircraft." The F4U Corsair, born into doubt and ridicule, had become a legend. Its gull wings cut not just through the skies, but through history itself, leaving a mark that would inspire generations. From the jungles of the Pacific to the pages of history books, from the roar of engines to the echoes of memory, the Corsair's story endures, a symbol of mastery, courage, and the unyielding spirit of those who dared to take flight. And though the war ended, the legend of the bent-wing bird continues to soar. June 21, 1950. Naval Air Station, Jacksonville, Florida. A new generation of pilots trains under the watchful eyes of veterans. The Corsair's gull wings glint in the morning sun as the aircraft roars down the runway, propeller cutting the air with precision. Young aviators climb into the cockpit, hearts pounding, hands gripping the controls. They know the history of the plane they are about to fly, and they feel its legacy in every vibration of the engine. One of them, Ensign Thomas Keller, exhales sharply as he pushes the throttle forward. The Corsair leaps forward with surprising agility, climbing steeply as if eager to remind him of its power. In the sky, he executes a series of maneuvers taught by veterans: dives, rolls, high-speed turns, all flowing smoothly as the aircraft responds without hesitation. It is a dance of man and machine, perfected over decades of lessons learned the hard way. Veterans like Boyington watch from the control tower, their eyes reflecting pride and nostalgia. "She never forgets," he murmurs. "She rewards those who respect her and punishes those who do not. That's why she became legendary. And that's why she will always be remembered." Beyond training, the Corsair continues to appear in airshows and exhibitions. Spectators marvel at the gull-winged silhouette streaking across the sky, engines roaring like a reminder of the Pacific battles that forged its reputation. Children and adults alike gape in wonder, unaware that this same aircraft once terrorized the skies for Japanese pilots, reshaping entire strategies with its speed, firepower, and maneuverability. Historians write of its feats, and museums display preserved F4Us for future generations. The aircraft becomes a bridge between past and present, a tangible reminder of bravery, innovation, and the transformative power of skill paired with technology. Its story is told over and over, from the early days of ridicule, through grueling lessons in the Solomons, to ultimate dominance in the Pacific Air War. The Corsair is more than a fighter plane, it is an enduring icon. Its gull wings, massive engine, and formidable guns stand as a testament to human ingenuity and courage. Its legacy is etched not only in history but in the psyche of aviation itself. Pilots who fly it even decades later feel a connection to those who first tamed it under fire, to those who proved that skill and determination can turn even a flawed design into an unstoppable force. As the sun sets over the airfield, casting long shadows over the gleaming Corsairs, the lesson is clear: greatness is often born from adversity. And the F4U Corsair, the once mocked bent-wing bird, embodies that lesson perfectly. The Pacific may have known the Corsair as a predator, but history knows it as a legend. November 11, 1960. Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum, Washington, D.C. A restored F4U Corsair sits under soft gallery lights, its polished gull wings angled dramatically, its fuselage gleaming as visitors gather to marvel. School children press their faces against the glass, wide-eyed. Veterans walk slowly by, eyes tracing every detail, remembering the roar of engines and the thrill of dogfights over distant islands. A docent, pointing to the aircraft, tells the crowd, "This is the F4U Corsair, once mocked for its wings and tricky landing behavior." Yet in the hands of skilled pilots, it became one of the most feared and effective fighters of World War II. It reshaped air combat in the Pacific and proved that mastery and courage can transform even the most unlikely tool into a legend. Across the globe, the Corsair's legacy is studied in military academies, its design analyzed by engineers, and its battles chronicled by historians. Its story serves as a case study in adaptation and perseverance, a lesson that extends beyond aviation into the broader challenges of human endeavor. The pilots who flew the Corsair, Boyington, Larsen, Smith, and countless others, are remembered not only for their skill but for their unwavering determination to turn an awkward aircraft into a weapon of precision. Each sortie, each engagement, each victory contributed to the enduring legend of the F4U, and their names remain synonymous with courage, strategy, and mastery. Even in popular culture, the Corsair leaves its mark. Movies, documentaries, and books recount its dominance in the Pacific, illustrating the journey from ridicule to fear, from doubt to triumph. The gull wings that once inspired jokes now inspire admiration, representing both the plane's unique design and the skill of the pilots who mastered it. The F4U Corsair reminds us that innovation often requires persistence. Its early flaws did not define its destiny. Rather, the determination of those who flew and maintained it shaped its legendary reputation. Where once it was mocked, it now commands respect. Where once it struggled to land, it now soars in memory and history alike. In the end, the Corsair's story is a testament to human ingenuity, skill, and courage. It is a story of transformation, proving that with dedication and mastery, even the most underestimated tools can leave an indelible mark on history. And so, from the skies above the Solomon Islands to museum halls around the world, the F4U Corsair continues to soar, not in engines and propellers, but in legend, memory, and history itself. March 27, 1980. Flying Heritage Collection, Everett, Washington. A meticulously restored F4U Corsair rolls onto the runway, engines purring like a living creature. The gull wings cast long shadows on the tarmac as a modern pilot climbs into the cockpit. The roar of the engine echoes across the airfield, drawing the attention of visitors who have gathered to witness the living legend in flight. The aircraft lifts into the sky with elegance, banking smoothly and climbing with breathtaking power. Each roll, dive, and turn echoes the maneuvers perfected by Boyington, Smith, Larsen, and countless other pilots during the Pacific campaigns. The air vibrates with the history of dogfights, long flights over islands, and the countless victories that turned ridicule into respect. Spectators watch in awe, imagining the Pacific skies of 1943 to 1945, where every engagement carried the weight of survival and the hopes of countless men. For a moment, history feels alive. The Corsair's roar is no longer just a sound. It is a bridge to a time when its gull wings ruled the skies. Historians reflect on its legacy. The F4U was more than an aircraft. It was a testament to the synergy of human skill and technological innovation. It proved that even a flawed design, through training, mastery, and perseverance, could dominate its adversaries and change the course of history. Veterans recount their experiences with reverence. Boyington's tales of daring maneuvers, split-S dives, and high-altitude dogfights are retold to new generations of pilots, inspiring lessons in courage, precision, and respect for the machine. Every story reinforces a singular truth. The Corsair demanded skill, rewarded mastery, and inspired awe. The gull-winged silhouette, once mocked in the early days, is now celebrated worldwide. It appears in museums, airshows, films, and documentaries. Its legacy is preserved not just in metal and engines, but in the imagination of those who honor its place in history. The Corsair's journey, from skepticism to legend, is a reminder that greatness often emerges from adversity. Challenges once seen as limitations became opportunities for mastery. Early criticism and ridicule did not define its fate. The dedication and skill of those who embraced it did. As the aircraft descends back to the tarmac, engines slowing, it carries with it the weight of decades of history, courage, and triumph. The F4U Corsair, the bent-wing bird once laughed at by enemies, has become immortal, not only as a machine of war but as a symbol of innovation, resilience, and the enduring spirit of those who dared to fly it. The legend of the Corsair lives on. April 2, 1995. Naval Air Museum, Pensacola, Florida. A group of young aviation students gathers around a Corsair on display, eyes wide with curiosity. A retired veteran pilot, now a mentor, gestures to the plane. "This was no ordinary aircraft," he begins. "It was difficult, unpredictable, even dangerous at first. But those who mastered it, those who learned her strengths and respected her limits, turned it into one of the most feared fighters of the Pacific War." He pauses, letting the words sink in. The Corsair teaches more than flying. It teaches patience, resilience, and the power of mastering what others might dismiss. Never underestimate something, or someone, because they start off flawed. With skill, courage, and persistence, you can change the outcome entirely. Outside, the gull wings of the aircraft gleam in the sunlight, a physical reminder of the lessons it imparts. The students trace their fingers along the fuselage, imagining the dogfights, the roar of engines, the adrenaline of combat, and the precision required to command such a machine. The Corsair is a bridge between generations, a living classroom in courage and mastery. Veterans like Boynton, Larson, and Smith had long passed on their knowledge, ensuring that the next generation understood not only the aircraft's technical capabilities but its symbolic power. The Corsair was never just a machine. It was a teacher, a challenge, and an inspiration. In every museum, every airshow, and every historical account, the Corsair continues to remind us of what human skill can accomplish. Its gull wings may have been awkward at first glance, its engine temperamental, and its landing difficult, but those obstacles did not define it. The mastery of pilots transformed potential into performance, doubt into dominance, and ridicule into reverence. The F4U Corsair's story is more than a tale of aerial victories. It is a story of resilience, innovation, and courage under pressure. It demonstrates that greatness often emerges from challenges, and that the combination of human skill and determination can transform even the most unlikely tools into legends. As the sun sets over the Pensacola Museum, casting long shadows across the gleaming aircraft, the lesson is clear. The Corsair will forever inspire those who dare to push boundaries, embrace challenges, and rise above doubt. The bent-wing bird may have first been laughed at, but its legacy teaches that perseverance, skill, and courage can turn even skepticism into legend. May 14, 2010. Airshow over Oshkosh, Wisconsin. A restored Corsair tears through the sky, propellers slicing the air with a roar that turns heads and draws cheers. Spectators watch in awe as the gull-winged silhouette climbs, rolls, and dives with precision, every movement reflecting decades of lessons learned in the crucible of the Pacific War. Veteran pilots and aviation enthusiasts recount stories of the aircraft's legendary feats. Children ask questions, eager to understand how a plane once mocked became feared, respected, and immortalized in history. Guides explain the transformation, from early challenges in handling and landing, to mastery in battle, to ultimate dominance over the Pacific skies. Each story reinforces the timeless lesson: the Corsair's greatness was forged through human skill, persistence, and courage. Historians note that the F4U Corsair did more than change the outcome of battles. It changed attitudes, strategies, and expectations. It reshaped what pilots believed was possible, proving that technical challenges could be overcome with determination and mastery. Its legacy lives in manuals, museums, documentaries, and the memories of those who flew it, but also in every aviator inspired to rise above doubt and adversity. The aircraft's gull wings, once the subject of ridicule, now symbolize innovation and resilience. The massive engine, once feared for its torque, is celebrated for power and reliability in skilled hands. And the pilots, Boynton, Larson, Smith, and countless others, remain immortal in history, their courage intertwined with the aircraft they mastered. Even today, modern military and civilian pilots study the F4U Corsair. Its lessons in aerial combat, adaptability, and pilot-machine synergy are applied in training programs, flight schools, and simulation exercises. Its legacy is not just nostalgia, it is living knowledge, a blueprint for mastering challenges with skill and confidence. As the airshow ends and the Corsair taxis back to the hangar, engines slowing, the crowd applauds. Yet for those who understand its history, the aircraft is more than a spectacle. It is a living reminder of perseverance, mastery, and transformation. The F4U Corsair, once mocked, once doubted, once feared only for its quirks, has endured as a legend. It taught the world that with skill, courage, and determination, even the most unlikely beginning can soar to greatness. And so, the bent-wing bird continues to fly, not just in the skies, but in history, memory, and inspiration for generations to come. September 3, 2020. National World War II Museum, New Orleans, Louisiana. A crowd gathers around a meticulously preserved F4U Corsair. Veterans, historians, students, and enthusiasts mingle, sharing stories and reflections. The aircraft gleams under the exhibit lights, its gull wings casting long shadows that stretch across the polished floor. A veteran pilot addresses the crowd. When we first flew these planes, many doubted them. They were tricky, unforgiving, even dangerous. But in the right hands, with training and determination, they became unstoppable. That's what the Corsair taught us. Mastery is born from challenge. Displays recount the aircraft's key battles: Guadalcanal, the Marianas, Leyte Gulf, Okinawa. Each engagement illustrates the transformation of the Corsair from a derided experiment into one of the most feared aircraft in the Pacific theater. Stories of pilots like Pappy Boynton and the Black Sheep Squadron are highlighted, emphasizing the human skill and courage that brought the aircraft's potential to life. The F4's legacy is also preserved through books, documentaries, and interactive exhibits, ensuring that future generations understand its significance. It is celebrated not just for its performance, but for the lessons it imparts, that perseverance, courage, and respect for one's tools can overcome doubt and achieve greatness. Mechanics and engineers who worked on the Corsair are remembered as much as the pilots. Their tireless maintenance, ingenuity, and care allowed the aircraft to perform beyond its original expectations. Every repaired engine, every reinforced wing, every carefully calibrated gun contributed to victories in the Pacific and cemented the Corsair's reputation. The psychological impact of the aircraft on the enemy cannot be overstated. Japanese pilots, once quick to mock the bent-wing bird, came to fear it above all others. Intelligence reports reflected awe and terror at the aircraft's performance, marking a dramatic shift from ridicule to respect, an enduring testament to its dominance. Even in peacetime, the Corsair's influence persisted. Modern fighter aircraft design and pilot training drew lessons from its performance, handling characteristics, and operational use. The aircraft became a case study in turning adversity into advantage, inspiring generations of pilots and engineers worldwide. As the museum lights dim and visitors depart, the Corsair stands quietly in the center of the exhibit. Its legacy is no longer limited to its battles. It is a symbol of perseverance, mastery, and triumph over doubt. From the early days of laughter and skepticism to its final recognition as a legendary fighter, the F4U Corsair has earned its permanent place in history. The bent-wing bird will never be forgotten. June 6, 2025. Airfield demonstration, San Diego, California. A restored Corsair ascends into the sky, the roar of its engine echoing over the tarmac. Spectators watch in awe as it climbs, rolls, and dives with the same precision that made it feared over the Pacific decades ago. Each maneuver reflects the mastery of the aircraft, honed over years of experience by pilots who understood that respect and skill were essential to success. Young aviation students, eyes wide with wonder, watch intently. Some take notes, others record the performance on cameras and phones. Their instructors point out details of the aircraft, the gull wing design, the torque of the engine, the arrangement of its guns. Lessons in aerodynamics, history, and strategy are intertwined with admiration for the legacy of the Corsair. For veterans in the crowd, the display is more than nostalgia. It is a living connection to the men who flew these planes in combat. The roar of the engine and the sight of the gull wings evoke memories of dogfights, missions over distant islands, and the camaraderie forged in the heat of battle. Historians note that the Corsair's influence extends far beyond its combat record. It is a case study in overcoming adversity, a tangible lesson in the power of human skill paired with technology. It demonstrates that even machines initially seen as flawed can achieve greatness when paired with training, persistence, and courage. The aircraft's legacy is also cultural. Movies, documentaries, and novels recount the feats of the Black Sheep Squadron and other Corsair pilots, preserving their courage and their ingenuity for generations who will never experience war firsthand. The F4U gull wings, once a subject of ridicule, have become a symbol of resilience and triumph over adversity. Boynton's words echo through history: respect the machine, trust your skill, and never underestimate the value of perseverance. That's what the Corsair taught us, and that's what it continues to teach those who watch her fly today. As the demonstration ends and the Corsair glides back to the runway, engines winding down, the applause is thunderous. Yet the real tribute lies not in the noise, but in the lasting inspiration the aircraft provides. The F4U Corsair, once laughed at by enemies, has achieved something far greater than victory in combat. It has become a symbol of mastery, courage, and the transformative power of determination. Its legend endures, forever soaring, forever inspiring, and forever reminding us that greatness often begins where doubt resides. December 7, 2030. Commemorative flight, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. A restored Corsair soars silently over the waters where decades earlier, the Pacific War began in fury. The gull-winged silhouette reflects the morning sun, a living monument to pilots who flew her into combat, mechanics who maintained her under impossible conditions, and the battles that shaped history. Veterans' descendants, aviation enthusiasts, and historians watch in solemn admiration. Children point skyward, captivated by the grace and power of the aircraft, imagining the courage of pilots who once faced danger far greater than what they witness today. Guides recount the story, how early critics mocked the Corsair for its awkward design and difficult handling. How pilots mastered it in the Solomons, the Marianas, Leyte, and Okinawa. How the aircraft came to dominate the skies, striking fear into Japanese pilots and earning its place among the most formidable fighters of World War II. The Corsair's story is not merely about victory, it is about transformation. It reminds us that challenges are opportunities, and that the combination of human skill and persistence can elevate even the most flawed beginning into greatness. Every maneuver, every flight, every story passed down contributes to the living legacy of the bent-wing bird. Across the world, museums, airfields, and historical collections preserve Corsairs for future generations. Films, books, and documentaries tell the tales of the Black Sheep Squadron and countless other pilots who mastered her. The gull wings that were once the subject of ridicule now inspire awe, a symbol of resilience, courage, and innovation. For the men who flew her, and for those who study her today, the lesson is timeless. Mastery is not achieved overnight. It comes through challenge, practice, trust, and courage. And for the F4U Corsair, mastery transformed it from a machine doubted by many into a legend respected by all. As the Corsair banks gently over Pearl Harbor and disappears into the horizon, the roar of its engine fades, but the echo of its legacy remains. The Pacific skies once dominated by fear are now filled with memory, respect, and inspiration. The F4U Corsair, once laughed at, once doubted, once feared, has flown beyond war into history, memory, and legend. Its story is eternal,